Welcome to the BYOB podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Ford, and today we have a very long-term friend of mine and special legal representative for our business that we highly recommend, Mr. Gareth Benson from IP Assist. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Andy. Great to be here on the Social Start couch after 10 years of Cheers.
It has been a while, so we will go into our meeting story. I think that's kind of interesting and all the work we've done. But I wanted to just give people a bit of a synopsis about you to start off with, just a position, who you are, what you do, because there's quite a variety of things. And I want you to sort of just give me the top line of all of them, and we'll delve back into the history and look at all your pivots, because there's quite an interesting journey that a roller coaster, you could say. So over to you.
Well, I would say, Andy, if you would like to start with my story, is that I'm a qualified intellectual property and commercial lawyer by training, but an entrepreneur by choice. And so while we both become corporate escapees, I have followed my purpose into a number of different businesses, which is what entrepreneurs do. I think the common thing between them all is actually I help empower others as a lawyer with their own ideas, as a content creator through ideas, and as an educator, I empower others to follow their ideas.
Genius. And you're also an author?
Most recently, during COVID, actually, released my first book, business book, and that was really about the journey of entrepreneurship. It's called Ideaology, and it's told through stories, but it's very much about business. It encourages people to develop their own ideology, as in their own ideas, nothing dramatic. But basically, in order to go out in business, you need to build a solid boat of which you will sail, be a captain of your ideas. And I am delighted to say I'm just re-releasing this book this week because of the AI revolution that's happening all around us. And I see it's even more important that entrepreneurs sailing with their new ideas into the world that actually embrace AI. AI is the sail on the ship, if you like. The book's very much about navigating those new waters with your new ideas.
Yeah, and we'll put a link in the show notes for you, mate, because it's a great read and very useful. I mean, intellectual property for entrepreneurs is such an important topic. I talk to my clients about it all the time, and I've tipped you into a lot of those clients. So we'll delve into a little bit of that, but let's delve back to what we normally do, is to look at the history of how this came about, because history is a interesting way of showing the future. So I want to start with, what was your first paying job? Way back when?
Yeah, way back when. Well, I worked for my family business. My father ran a small business at home, and actually the first paycheck was for 2 cents for stapling one of their Australian forestry supplies. Yeah, that was my first wage, 2 cents.
Wow. Hopefully it's progressed a bit more.
Thankfully, due to inflation, $2 staple now. Mum and Dad growing up in country Victoria, I mean, they had to wear a lot of different hats, as small business owners, and they would incentivize us kids there's 4 kids in our family, to actually a right to a payday and they incentivized us by actually paying 2 cents a staple. I think it was 5 cents an envelope when you folded them.
Yeah.
And then for the complete catalog, the binding, it might have been another 10 cents there. So 35 cents per unit. But then we learned the value of money and the importance of actually earning a right to something, but also incentivizing us, because obviously you could do one round the table, staple, fold, and then get ready to send. But then you're like, oh, I made 35 cents. That was pretty easy. But then you do it again and you do it again. And scale. So it was my first job. And I have to say,
how old were you then?
That was probably about 8 years old.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Yeah. I'm a believer in it's good to get kids to learn about money as early as possible. It's difficult now because, kids can't get jobs under 15 and a half or something. But, as I've said before on the podcast, I did a paper round when I was maybe 6 days a week, 2 hours every morning at 5 a.m. right? I'll shine. And I didn't like it, but I wanted the money, so I did it. It teaches you resilience and resourcefulness and hard work and et cetera, et cetera. But all my friends did. Like, it was just normal. So I love that. And particularly in the country I'm sure you're at, outdoors doing lots of stuff as well, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, look, it was a place of imagination and growth. And actually, the first idea for a business probably came from around those days as well. I remember we went as a family to Fiji and to one of the Fiji resort holidays. I think it was called the Hyatt Regency. And I was just amazed at this other world that we'd just been into, but also how this business of a hotel worked. And so I would come back and then I would replicate that in the family home. You'd take orders. Yeah,
Turn down mum's bed and,
that's right. Yeah.
put a little swan pillow, the
Yeah,
towel.
I would take breakfast in bed. I would take their order, and then we'd move into entertainment. And I'd run a
Ah,
radio station during the day, like they did at the resort. And yeah, I basically replicated that.
I took my kids overseas and they just wanted room service from then on. They what I did wrong. I didn't get the lesson. So you went from there and talk about your first sort of jaunt into your career was you went from school to uni and then into the legal profession. Why law? What attracted you to that profession?
Well, I was always a humanities student. So, and the other thing I used to love doing as a kid was variety to history and culture and reading and many of the pursuits we'd call humanities. And so I had that conundrum that many people do, I think, when they sort of finish high school, you're involved in a various different thing, you're recognized for your various different talents. But then I had to make a decision of what path I'm going to take. So obviously with an arts degree, a law degree is kind of coupled together. The use of words, the use of language. And I was ambitious and I studied hard and basically I chose art law because it was probably the best fit for me at that time. And I finished the qualification and continued my interest in other things as we do as entrepreneurs. And then I kind of came out the end and I said, if I'm going to practice law, I'm going to practice in an area that I'm interested in, the industry I'm interested in. And I was interested in the media because the media is full of stories and it's full of opportunities to go on other learning adventures, really. And so that's what couched that decision. And I am glad in retrospect I did it because it was the right decision until I found being an intellectual property or IP media lawyer that beyond the media, I had my own ideas. And that's when the entrepreneurial scratch had to be, each had to be scratched. Yeah.
Yeah. And look, IP law is such a great area. And obviously all the things that are happening in the world with AI and technology, it's a great business to be in. So tell me a bit more about your ventures into media itself, as in creating media at True Blue and doing documentaries, because that's a really interesting pivot. That's quite a departure from, I mean, it's probably not in terms of words and stories, but it's a slightly different daily office.
I would say that because I was practicing law in the media, I just made the step from being a legal practitioner into becoming a producer. And actually, the skills of a lawyer as a producer are very useful because they negotiate contracts for the content, whether it was for SBS Television, who I work for, or if you're producing your own projects. So simply a step from that role of lawyer into producer and content production. What I saw wearing the entrepreneurial hat, Andy, is that with the emergence of content creation through digital industries at about 2000 to 2010, right when the mainstream media was then competing with digital, we saw YouTube grow out of Google. It was purchased by Google for $1 billion. And then Facebook became an entrant. And all of a sudden, the way that we were consuming media was changing. So I saw the opportunity to become that producer with digital. And that's when I formed the business that we engaged first in with True Blue, which was essentially early content marketing before it was recognized as a discipline. So I was doing that at 9, coming out of SBS Television. How I packaged it was much like you did, Andy. I saw business owners having a need to promote their business and services, but not knowing how to use the digital. And so I would, through True Blue TV, teach them I would build them a YouTube channel and then make them 3 videos for and around their business. And that was my first packaged offering.
Yeah. Which you did for us. I remember doing a Christmas video. I remember doing information to business, hand stitch animation.
Telling stories.
Yeah, it was great though. Yeah, it's still on mine. You can still see it on YouTube. People go to our channel. So
It was
I
beautiful. It was
love that.
great to work and support each other in that way because at the end of the day, you got to do what you wanted to do, which was,
Mm.
leave the machine, move from marketing into digital marketing. And it was a slight flip pivot. I moved from television and media, from internal business affairs for television into producing content in digital.
Mm. So the industry was the same, but you're also going from a paycheck to an uncertain financial future. So tell us about that. Was that a scary thing? Were you able to make that easily? Was it did you worry about it? Tell us a bit more about that sort of transition period.
Look, I think all of life is uncertain, and leaving the machine of full-time employment after you've earned the right to be there, in various roles, sometimes quite senior like yourself, can seem like a scary proposition. But I think a scary proposition is not doing what we really love in the world. When I went through some losses, which is all part of the journey, I actually really began to evaluate that. And I really began to realize that once you've lost some, when you've lost some things dear to you, when you've lost money, a lot of money, I think in my first actually attempt at True Blue, I lost $28,000. And I also lost some other very things important to me. But I came back around to the idea was not the thing that was wrong. It was just, I wasn't fully prepared. But once you go through that, Paulo Coelho says, from the famous author that wrote The Alchemist.
The Alchemist.
Yeah. The Alchemist. I mean, that's a beautiful story, that one, because the Alchemist doesn't get there without finding them out, without a fight, right? Without disappointment or delays and it's the finding of oneself, on that journey that is the gold. But also what I felt entrepreneurship is it's about being able to transcend your own fear, paycheck to paycheck, even uncertainty. Because on that journey for myself, even though in the first circumstance of True Blue, I lost $20,000 because I tried to set it up in a foreign country bubble. It's another story.
Trying to be too tricky.
I think a bit too much off, but the idea was sound. And so why I'm relaying it to you is that when I came back to do it in Melbourne, and it wasn't too long after we met, I had lost all fear because it wasn't the idea, it was just the circumstances. And when I was able to rationalize that, it actually became easy. I mean, don't get me wrong, the first year is difficult. You've got to wear so many hats. You've got to be your own accountant, be a project manager, you've got to be your own marketing department, and you basically got to, but once you get through that first year, once you have actually endured the worst over there. And it very much is, as then you go on that journey, is a relationship of how you can do it better.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's a really good point you raise. And I'm hearing this a lot around from different entrepreneurs is about the journey. It's sort of stoicism. The journey is the reward. I'm actually listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's book, and he goes on about this a lot. Is don't avoid the work and look for the outcome, but you've got to love the pain of the work, because otherwise there's no fulfillment. If you're not testing yourself, pushing yourself, testing your limit and really going for it, then the reward isn't there no matter what the outcome you get. And you see this with people who just suddenly get lots of money and they don't really appreciate it because they don't work for it. They might enjoy the holiday and so forth, but they waste it. It is away because they haven't earned it, and it's not satisfying. And so the comfort of having a paycheck every day and going to work, and look, workplaces are not that stable either, to be honest. But having that is comforting and less risk. But gee, and entrepreneurship is difficult, but the rewards of entrepreneurship is mighty. And I think those, not only for the success ones, but for all the people who try their best. Because if I try my best and I don't make it, at least I've given it a shot. And I'd rather do that than not. And you've given lots of things a shot. Like I've seen, you've been very creative. You're the most creative lawyer I know. Not in your legal practice, but in your lifestyle. And I'd love to hear more about that from you, because you're in Darwin at the moment and you've done some amazing projects. And I just want you to delve a little bit into those left of center things, because whilst you've kept your legal work going as a base, because that's part of who you are, but you've extended it into other things, which are really interesting. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, look, being a lawyer, first thing I'll say, it does not define who you are. It is a skill set, and a skill set that I earned for 6 years, and then qualification, doing my articles of clerkship, working the rungs of a corporate law firm, and then into working in-house for some of the top innovative organizations in Australia, CSIRO, Australian Centre of Moving Image, and SBS Television. So I earned the right and skills to do that, but that doesn't define who I am. And if outside of that, I'm also a creative person, an ability to make a film, tell a story, and actually create pathways for employment, myself and others through that, then that's how I've applied myself. The practice of law gave me business acumen, of which I execute daily. And on top of that, I am able to create content and products for business that are creative. And so I would say I'm a creative innovator, but I have to be a lawyer. And what defines me is actually the ability to see creative solutions around problems and to actually use that right side of my brain. I'm trained, I am more naturally on the right side. I'm more naturally a creative humanities person. However, I've been trained in the left. And I've found the skills using them both is actually very powerful, Drew, because what happens is you can actually analyze a problem or a situation, and you can then find a creative solution around it to actually get around that problem. And I find that that's very useful in my entrepreneurship, because I'm able to think about things critically, analytically, but also come up with creative, innovative ideas and then provide the structure to actually go about it. And I often move between the both. In actual fact, in more recent years, I've been doing that a lot. And that really helps me.
I love that. And it kind of you remind me of me, and I've never heard you explain it like that, but it's actually genius. Is that a couple of things you said is one, you're not defined by your profession, but a lot of people do define themselves. You go, hi, I meet somebody, I'm Andrew, and they're John or something. And I go, and they're like, I'm a lawyer, or I'm a doctor, or I'm an engineer. And that's the definition of them. And it's really interesting that you could have that because you've got a status profession, but you choose to be you first and what you do second, which I love. And I think that the other thing I take out of that is that the intersection of different things that is your uniqueness. And that's why people gravitate to you or not. But those who do really become sticky because they go, wow, I really love the way you present that and the way you are. And you can do multiple things with people. Once people are attracted to your brand, you can do legal work with them. You can do other things with them as well. So there's more opportunities than just one.
True. Yeah. And I'll say this also, one of the big things, I think I'm a big believer in purpose, and there is a school of thought as that what is purpose and what is your why. But I do believe it. I think the three things that I do, as I said at the start of this, is that I'm an educator, as you are at work, universities. I really enjoy learning and actually repackaging to empower others. I am an IP commercial lawyer. I have tried litigation and I've been through federal court cases and won. Again, that litigious. I'm more about growth and empowerment. That's the alignment between the law. And then I'm about creative expression, which I get to do through film and content creation and being an author, comic book author last year. So the three things for me to summarize that down is I'm about empowering others with ideas. And I do that in three different ways. And actually, I'll just say one note about that last thing, education. I feel the greatest way to actually make progress in anything you're doing is to actually help others with it. I describe it as purpose, if you like, in a recent education program I delivered, as a superpower. Like your purpose, once you found it, as Mark Twain famously said, there's two most important days of your life, the day you're born and the day you find your purpose. But once you've found that gift, once you know what that is, a superpower is only good when you help others with it. And actually, the quickest way to gain traction, as you know, in business and in life, because you're just helping others with your gift, your superpower, what you really enjoy doing. And that brings energy to your discourse and energy to what you deliver. And you become invaluable, I think, to client and even potential employers. It's not to say you can't do your purpose outside of entrepreneurship. And those kind of people radiate. And all I'm suggesting is that I've walked a long, hard road, to find out who I am. an identity is your most powerful source. But once that old tried and true philosophy that's inscribed on the walls of Delphi in Greece is know thyself. Once you know that, you're ready to find that gift, I feel, and then you just repackage it. If I was in a corporate law firm now practicing what I do, I probably would last, much like yourself, 2-3 months. I'd get there, I'd say, wow, but the environment doesn't allow me to be me. So what I'm saying is that sometimes what we do and how we deliver it, and most importantly, making sure it's congruent with our identity. And then I believe you can create all sorts of possibilities for yourself. Serial entrepreneurs do that frequently. Just by solving the problem they're more than likely passionate about, not just about the dollars. Doesn't make sense if you don't love the problem. And that could be producing in augmented reality, a new technology, but telling stories with it for education and tourism. Or it could be something completely different. Actually, harking back to my youth, when I started some Airbnbs, because I'm actually the hotel proprietor, I always imagine myself. The thing that is in common is that I enjoy the problem, and it is actually even in tourism or running a good Airbnb experience. It's just offering an experience and offering a positive memory for somebody's holiday or business trip. And so I would just say that the way you can make reason of this is simply to look within yourselves. I write about it a lot in Ideology. The I for in ideas is actually identity. The best and most valuable intellectual property that I have seen across science, innovation, media, and entertainment has come from an entrepreneur who is very aware of who they are, very aware of what problem they want to solve in the world. They might have a great passion. Would be in Canva is a great example. Melanie Perkins was a creative Australian graphic designer, has built a competitive company against Adobe that is now worth $60 billion. And essentially, she's actually still that graphic designer because she saw the tools, and we've used the tools, and saw how difficult they are. They still are difficult to use. However, she solved the problem because she empowered everyone to become a graphic designer. So she's given away her identity by saying, I'm a graphic designer. These tools don't work. Moreover, everybody should have the ability to create design. The world needs design. And she just followed her identity, sailed so far forward in something that the world really needs with digital, with the support of her husband, Cliff Albright. Canva is a love story, an Australian love story. They did it together. And the reality is that she was just solving a problem that is congruent to her identity, who she. And I do believe everyone has a chance to find their ideology, what their idea is. And it begins with identity, because what I've seen is that valuable intellectual property, once it's grown, once you've developed it, the second part of the framework, it basically then turns into something valuable. It's intellectual property worth preserving, but it starts with the idea and problem to solve that is, important to you.
I love that. That's a great example and a great explanation. And one thing I just wanted to add for people listening is that I'm not saying that working for others is necessarily bad. It's more, you've got to find what suits you. And you and I are both free-spirited people. We like to be masters of our own destiny. And so that doesn't suit a corporate structure. But I worked in corporate 15 years and I had a great time. Learned a lot, met great people. But at some stage, I wanted to do my own thing. And so a lot of the people we work with, corporate escapees, and they're, generally around 50 because they've already done the work, earned the money, and they're ready to do something else, 40 to 50. So I don't want to say that it disparages people working for people because, working for Canva might be an amazing opportunity if you follow that same true North Star that she does and you have the same beliefs and values, then that could be a great place to, work, earn your stripes, because maybe entrepreneurship is not for you. Certain circumstances don't suit. And so I just wanted to raise that point because, there are dark days in entrepreneurship. I'm sure you've had them yourself. I have. And, but I enjoy that challenge. That's just part of what I live for is that challenge. And if I don't have enough challenge, I make challenge.
Totally. Yeah. It's not easy. In fact, it's one of the biggest adventures you'll ever go on in life. And if you're fooling yourself if it's going to be easy. I mean, you used to climb up a mountain, right? You don't get the rewards from being at the top, where there is few people, by the way. And I'm just meaning that most people are content, they'd like to climb the mountain, but they don't necessarily have the skills, or they don't necessarily have the inspiration, or it's just too risky. The fear is a big factor in it. But the reality is that you're going to have, difficult days. I'm a big believer in the hero's journey in all this. Your road of trials ends up defining you. It's just a myth if you're not going to have the trial. So, and you do come up stronger through them. You know, you really do. In fact, the loss brings you closer. It's a bit like Marcus Aurelius. It's like every fight, every struggle actually brings you closer to your goal. And I do think there's some truth and wisdom in that. Entrepreneurship is not easy, but it's also, once you've left the bottom of the mountain, it's really hard to go back down again and just sit in the village.
Yeah. I actually went to a book launch of Radek Starley, who
Yes,
last
I know
night,
Radek.
from Swiss. He sold his business for a tremendous amount of money. Well, the business of which he was a shareholder, and it was, you know, I sat next to him actually at the event. And it's just such a regular guy.
He's a surprisingly chill guy, very
So down to earth.
Always has been, by the way. I worked with him at Village Roadshow years ago, like back uni days. And I would say his temperament the same. So it hasn't changed him. No.
Yeah, and that's what I don't know him that well, but I just happened to sit next to him. I know his wife. But what was interesting about it is that they said, you know, because there was other people speaking about the journey of how he almost lost everything. Like, you know, it was standing on the precipice looking into the abyss after they went to the US. And they talk about it in the book, which I haven't read, but they spoke about it, how when he did the big venture expanding into the US, and it was they set up beautifully, they did everything right, and it went to pieces. And then, but he kept searching. He didn't go give up or blame or any of those things. He's just one of those characters who gets on with it and looks for the solution, and they end up finding a partner in China who end up buying them. But it was an amazing role. It should be a movie now they've written the book. And like Canva, I mean, we should get these good news stories out there with the real trials and tribulations, because they are modern success stories. And I think we don't celebrate entrepreneurship enough in this country, where we, and even the people who've tried, because it's not easy. It's a great personal development program if you're looking for that sort of thing.
And absolutely. I think we call it entrepreneurship, but I think every artist has gone through that, every sportsman as well. Maybe they've made a bucket of money, or maybe they haven't. You know, I've been fascinated by Taylor Swift's story, because it is one of entrepreneurship, but it's also one of absolute determination that is really about her own story and her own identity and sharing who she is as a musician and artist. But the way she's managed herself has been amazing. Even rescuing, we do have a case study in Ideaology 2.0 where basically we explore Taylor Swift's journey, and we see how she commanded her own IP. She had to re-record her masters. She had to take ownership of her IP and put it back on a boat, so to speak, in order to then also control her narrative, transcend the media, she shook it off. The haters are going to hate Andy, but you shake it off. And actually, she is herself first and foremost. She's managed to become a cultural icon through that at age 33. And I think that's really interesting, because she could have given up at any stage or settled for being a country and western singer. But no, she's been relentless in her pursuit of her own identity, and the world loves her for it.
Yeah. And she shared her highs and lows as well. I mean, she had a lot of haters for a long time, and, you know, people love to pull people down off the pedestal, and she survived, and that's not easy to do in showbiz. So.
Totally. In fact, I watched something of hers recently, and she just says in her awards, of which she's won an enormous amount, so she's also a leader in her craft, is she said, the critics are just a sign you're getting closer.
Great. I like that. I'll have to remember that. Yeah. And look at, you know, we all, like we said, there's highs and lows, but it's life, and live a life of adventure. And one thing I noticed with you that I did want to ask you about, and I hope you don't mind me asking, is, like, I do recall you had this renaissance about 5 years ago. I think that's the right timing, when you just came to life and had so much enthusiasm and energy. And I really did see a notable change in you. And I want to know what the elixir was. And I hope it was something legal and I could get access to.
Yeah. I think I know the time you're talking about. It was about 5. It was about 2019, 20. Like, and I had some tough periods just before that. Like, they were really
Yeah, I know.
they
I
were
saw
tough
them. Yeah.
periods. Yeah, I went through, and I was just approaching 40, just turned 40, and I think, and maybe listeners can relate to them. It's like had a bit of a that midlife crisis, some would call it, but also I thought that I'd be at a different stage maybe at 40 than I was. But it led to a bit of a dark night of the soul. It lasted about a year. It wasn't easy. I actually took up teaching during that period because it helped me greatly, not focusing on me or where I thought I should be or the money or any of those things. And I took up teaching, and it greatly helped me during that period of time. And then for anyone that is listening, going through some tough times, I do want to share that the tough times define you, because you do have to surround yourself through friends and people that have a genuine care for you, but you do also have to forge your own way through it. And through that, I actually found myself, and I'm happy to say that I probably have 1, 2, maybe 3 of those in my life. Like, they're just crossroads. They're crossroads, life challenges. Pull your go, fall down 7, get up 8, or maybe 4 or
Yeah.
5, or maybe we've all got 9 lives. But the point
Yeah.
is that I actually found it, and I found it in education, because I really did also the inner work. I did a lot of inner work, and I'm a big proponent of doing anything that is basically helps you gain a stronger sense of self. It can really help you through tough times, whether it's breath work, meditation, holistic practices, sport, creativity. I won't define it for you, but for me, I found it through breath work. Nicholas Di Castella helped
It
me.
was
Actually, one of his students helped me. It was, and I think he runs a great business that is helping others connect with themselves. And through that, I actually recognized a big thing. The Renaissance happened when I actually realized, actually, this is what I stand for in all of these things that I've done. And at that stage, it was a content business, a lawyer, being a lawyer, and then as an educator, it was about empowerment. And then when I flipped it around, I was able to just really clearly see, what my purpose was. And then I just lost all fear. I just took off again.
Yeah.
I started actually on this whole pathway of creating employment programs for international students, because
Yeah, I
I've
remember.
one. And I've just delivered one actually in Alice Springs. We had 12 people involved, 10 First Nation students, and I began defining a program where people could find their purpose, find their pathway. And it worked, because in disadvantaged youth in Alice Springs, many people they only finish school at year 10, but basically they've got nowhere to go, let alone find their purpose. But we managed to put that together in a program that I began working on around this period of time, 5 years ago. And it was really satisfying to see, because it meant also my instincts were correct, right? And that, yes, I had to go through the trials and tribulations of setting up a apprenticeship program, and I was just about to launch, and then 2020 and COVID hit. But it was all around this period of time, and you do have to keep pivoting despite things, even if things around you are collapsing. COVID was an incredibly productive time for me, because I think I
Yeah.
really began to use the force, so to speak. It's just like, it's okay. I know who I am. I've got to navigate like a captain of your ideas. Calm waters are not assured for a captain. In fact, you sign up to
Yeah.
be a captain. You have to earn the right to be a captain. You have to build the boat before you leave the harbor. And you can bet that those journeys are fraught with danger and stormy seas and treasures and adventures and people. And I see entrepreneurship as very much the same. COVID was like that. Storms were around, but it mattered what you did or the decisions you made. And for me, I went online, and then I just kept running education seminars because I enjoyed it. Plus, it was the networking. I finished my work. I actually moved state and didn't tell anyone for 6 months. Ran a digital entrepreneurship convention from Howard Spring in Northern Territory with 5 other entrepreneurs and to 197 people. And I wasn't even in the state. But it didn't matter back then, and it doesn't
No.
now. And
Yeah.
so
No.
the other side of the dark night of the soul is you do emerge for it stronger. And when you're very aware of who you are and what you want to do, then a rough sea's never made a sure sailor. And you sign up
Yeah.
for it, right, with entrepreneurship. And so you just keep navigating. And I find
Yeah.
that's that resilience, that tenacity. Yeah, you got to take time out, like he did in The Alchemist, and maybe he works in a china shop for a year, and then you come out of it, or you don't come out of it. You just decide you've learned something to take it
Yeah.
slow.
Yeah.
So I feel that this is the journey and the great adventure of it all. And you never really lose anything. Like we all caught up in Melbourne very recently and nothing, we're all, the
No, it
friendship's
was
still
great.
there, the history's still there. But I knew after that week, I was ready to get back up onto the frontier.
Yeah.
New adventures to have. Yeah.
And 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 I remember that time because I remember we were talking a little bit back. I have a more of an intellectual approach to branding, and so we were trying to figure out what is your essence and, what's the pathway. But then breathwork was the answer for you, which is another mutual friend and one of my
Yeah.
partner clients, which was, what because I thought it was meditation, but whatever it is it's got to be the thing that you find that particular time that's going to like explore, go and try different things to when you're in that place. And we've all been there. I've been there, and it's how do you get out of it and be a searcher and know that you will get out of it
That's
because
right.
you
Yeah.
know
You can't lose
there's
hope. You've got to keep going.
yeah
And yeah, and yes, yeah. And to
and you
find that
came
thing,
out of
the
it.
best thing you can do actually also is help others. It really
Yes.
deflects. It deflects from your sense of self when you truly, even if you're struggling, and this as a father, that you can pour it into the nurturing of someone else or the empowerment of others. It actually offsets it all, even if it's for a limited period of time. It gives you a stronger way to cope, and empowerment is a very strong. It is a superpower. Like when you can take what you and even if in your darkest days, you've still got your gifts, but if you can give them away, Julio Coelho,
Yeah,
I mean, so Picasso said, like, find your gift, give it away. And it's so true. Even if you're not,
that is true.
when you come to the other side of it, you then go, well, I survived all that. It's a dark night of the soul, whatever. That's just, by the way, that's the light. The dark night of the soul is the light you are. So you got to go through the darkness to find the light. And no one that's lasted 40 years on earth hasn't gone through some rocks. So I feel that, yeah, there's some, find your practice, as you say, Andy. Like I can't sit here and say breathwork's going to work for you or meditation is, or for some people, it's just stop going on sabbatical, finishing work, taking a big holiday, going to India, going to Bali. So you've got to go to the other side of yourself, essentially.
Yeah,
Travel's a
yeah,
wonderful thing to do that.
yeah, sure. And being open to meeting different people, like, and having different experiences. And, I know that I try and follow my intuition and believe like you, there's a purpose and it'll lead me through and you should bump into that right person at the right time. And some people ignore that. They're like, oh, I can't see a sensible reason to do this. But don't worry about that. Follow your gut. And because there's probably a reason down the track. And there's some interesting stories up, in my life where I've had this, wow, I don't know why that happened. And then years later, I'm like, wow, now I know. And gee, that was fortunate and that I did do it. So yeah, it's an interesting life if you're up for the adventure rather than closed off to opportunity. And I think, I mean, you've always been an adventurer, and like, you've come to my events, which I'm very grateful, and that's where you met Nicholas. So I'm like,
Totally. You're a great connector. And in fact, that's one of your superpowers.
yeah, well, I love it. I love people, and I love, and now I'm coming to your events, which I love too. You got all
Yeah.
these great people. I'm like, oh, I know half these people, and
I've been
you
on
know,
your
it,
journey, brother. Yeah. I remember when you stood on the balcony of another mutual friend, Lauren Riley. She said, I really want to leave. I've been playing the secret life. I've been going and setting up the business. And then I go off to the little studio and I want social star, you said it, to be the McDonald's of social and content marketing. And the world is changing as well. And social is
yeah,
digital. And I remember it. And I was,
still a plan.
thankfully, I was one of your first clients, and vice versa. We've referred many people, and we should always remember that, Andy. We all should. The sharing and abundance always comes back. It always comes back.
Yeah,
And I really think that, yeah, that we are on this earth to share. The very essence of it. We are here to share. We are here to share our experiences. Our time is very short. Like it can over in a heartbeat. It can be, but our experiences can be rich if we share what we like with people that we love and we continue on our path, just doing what we love doing. And because with that, we are, and that makes us rich, right? Rumi says, after all of this time, after all of this searching, we come to realize that we are the goal after all along. We can't take it with us, but we can live in our present moment and be rich in that with who we surround ourselves with, what we are doing, and how we spend our time. So that's my belief.
Oh, man. I normally ask a finishing question of what's your advice to people, but that's just perfect. I'm sorry. I can't top that. That is, look, I really resonate with your advice. I hope the listeners do also take to heart what you say, because it is easy to get caught up in consumerism and commercialism, and you're a refreshing, entrepreneur in that respect. And we've been on lots of journeys together, and I love that about you. And that's why when you message me, I'm like, I'm there, I'll come, because we have those shared beliefs. And I think that some of those things you've said are really important for young people to listen to, particularly when they're starting out. So, brother, it's always good to talk to you. I love
Absolutely,
it.
Andy.
Hopefully, you come back to Melbourne soon.
100%. We'll always be having a catch up around the Melbourne Harvest, and you're more than welcome up north. If you care to take
I'd
the
love
road.
to come up. Actually, I'm not going to drive my Tesla; it'd be too hard to get up there. But I'll drive. No matter what, Mike.
Right? You'll have a few stories to share on the other side.
I know. Anyway, great to talk to you, and we'll talk to you very soon.
No worries. Ideology 2.0. You can get it on Amazon very soon. Road less travel. Thank you, Andy.
Thanks, buddy. Bye.